Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the What's Up Webcast. We are finally back live. Hopefully, for those of you who are here in the U.S., you had a good holiday, Thanksgiving holiday. Thanks for everyone who watched our Dylan O'Donnell episode last week. Hopefully, you enjoyed that. Maybe we'll have him back on sometime in the near future. But we are back live again, hanging out on Friday. So thanks for spending your Friday morning with us right here. If you've never joined us before, the Skywatcher What's Up webcast takes place every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, go ahead and subscribe, leave a like to a video. It lets us know we're doing a good job and that you want us to keep going with it. If you have any questions or ideas for a What's Up webcast episode, or just want to let us know how we're doing, you can email us at info@skywatcherusa.com and just title it What's Up so we know that's what you're talking about. But we definitely appreciate you hanging out with us. Basically, what we do here on the webcast, if you've never been here before, is we cover everything from equipment to what's up in the night sky to helpful tips and tricks for observing and imaging. And then at the end of the month, we have a special guest on to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. So we try to cover the bases here. It is the beginning of the month, so we're going to be talking about what's up in the sky. But before we get going, if you ever want to keep in touch with what's going on and you want to know all the future episodes that are coming out for the week, go ahead over to skywatcherusa.com, hit the subscribe button up at the top. That adds you to our email list, and it'll just keep you up to date with all the cool things that are going on. And it's almost a new year, which means there might be some new stuff coming out next year too. So being on that email list can definitely help you keep up with all the cool things that we might be showcasing there. So go ahead, hit subscribe. It'll keep you up to date with what's going on here for Skywatcher. But yeah, that's pretty much what we do here on the What's Up webcast. So thanks for spending your morning with us. Let's get started real quick. You know, if you're looking for something neat for the holidays, because telescopes and equipment are non-existent right now, unless you've been waiting and you've been very, very good, then you'll maybe get something. But yeah, everything's on back order right now. It's a mess. So thanks for being patient. If you have stuff on back order, stuff's coming in, I promise. Just you got to be patient with it. We're doing everything we can to do it. But if you're looking for something nifty for the holidays, we got all kinds of cool stuff here. Shoes, leggings, shirts. We have a shower thing now, phone cases, all kinds of stuff. So all different images and all kinds of cool stuff there. That is skywatcher.threadless.com. There's all kinds of cool swag on there. So I'm sorry, I should have hit transition. There we go. Now you can see all this stuff that I'm actually talking about. This is live. That means we can say anything. But we're not going to say anything because we could get in trouble if we said certain things. Anyway, this is our swag store, so go ahead, check that out. We appreciate you hanging out with us. And if you're looking for something nifty for the holidays, there's all kinds of cool things that our marketing team's been working on putting that together. So anyway, that is that. That is the skywatcher.threadless.com store. So that is it for swag. Because no one saw this earlier because my big head was in the way. If you want to keep up, if you want to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you want to know about sending in episode ideas, go ahead and do info@skywatcherusa.com. There's the email right there if you don't know how to type that out. And if you want to keep up on what's going on, new stuff, go ahead to our website, skywatcherusa.com, and hit the subscribe button. So yeah, now that we covered all that, we could actually get on with the episode instead. First thing, the moon. Big, bright ball of light. Not the sun, the one that's up at night. It's the biggest thing up in the evening sky, so we should probably talk about it. New moon for this month is December 4th, so tomorrow. And that means the dark sky weekend is this weekend, the 4th and the 5th. So if you're looking to get out and do some dark sky observing, hopefully you've got some plans and the weather's good. Go on and head out to those dark skies because it is the last new moon of the month. It might be a little chilly out there too, so dress accordingly. But yeah, that's the new moon for December 2021. And then the full moon is December 18th. So not quite to the holiday season yet back in there. Depends on what holiday, actually. But yeah, full moon is December 18th. And this is the cold moon. I'm sure you can figure out why it's called the cold moon. It's actually from Mohawk Native Americans that coined this phrase because of the frigid temperatures that would show up this time of year and still do. So it is appropriately named for this time of year as we get into December 21st, 22nd. It's officially winter here in the Northern Hemisphere. So that is where it gets its name, because it's cold. Figure that one out. But yeah, that is your moon phases for the month, essentially. Pretty quick and easy. So if you're looking to get to some dark skies, do some cool observing, hope you've got something planned for the weekend. And yeah, just keep an eye out on for full moon is December 18th. So plan your imaging or dark sky or whatever you're doing accordingly. Planets. Now, we've got a plethora of planets to actually look at right now up in the nighttime sky. A lot of the major naked eye planets are up and easily visible, so you can go out and check them out anytime. Of course, Venus is probably the easiest one to find right after the sun goes down. I'm going to go to full screen here, transition over here, and let me see if my software's going to work or if it's going to... There we go. So we're going to try something different. Usually I like to use Stellarium. Stellarium is a free software that you can get online. It's a planetarium software. I have actually switched out to... this is Starry Night Pro Plus 8. This is a planetarium software I've worked with for a long time, and then it's been a few years since I've actually been able to mess with it, so I went ahead and got a copy of it. It's like a really advanced version of Stellarium. It is not a freeware, by the way, like Stellarium. Stellarium is excellent because it's free. They do a really nice job of it, but there's a lot of stuff that you can do in Starry Night Pro Plus 8 or whatever. So anyway, just using this to try it out. So if you're looking for something, this is what we're using in this episode. So let's talk about the planets. Now, the planets move across the nighttime sky in an imaginary line called the ecliptic. And the ecliptic, I'm going to highlight right here. There it goes on screen. Boop. The moon, the planets, comets, which we'll talk about later. Everything in the solar system travels across this imaginary line called the ecliptic, rising in the east, setting in the west. So that is the line that we're going to take a look at for our planets. Now, this evening, wherever you are, just after sunset, let's try to back this up a little bit. There we go. I do have the constellations on and their names, obviously, so don't go outside and try to look for the imaginary lines in the sky because they don't exist. So as someone who's done outreach for years, that has come up before. But yeah, so Venus right now is in the constellation of Sagittarius. It's currently setting in the western part of the sky. It's easily visible right now. Bright naked eye object that would be hard to miss right now. And it is getting into... I'm still kind of learning how this works, but we do have a crescent for Venus now. So Venus, because it's inside the orbit of Earth, much like Mercury is as well, you actually can get phases of the moon, or phases, just like the moon does. I'm going to go ahead and stop this real quick. So there's the planet Venus. That is a naked eye object right after the sun goes down. You should be able to see it big, bright in the west. And now that it's in that crescent phase, it's kind of a fun thing to go out and actually try to observe, just because you can see phases. And you can get something as simple as like a 70 millimeter refractor to give you a real nice look of it. But really any kind of optic would work. So that is the planet Venus. That is going to be your starting point for the evening of observing. And then, of course, after Venus, I'm not doing these in any particular order. They're mostly just the brightest to more faint stuff. We have Jupiter. Jupiter is up as well. Jupiter is going to be in the opposite part of the sky, however, in comparison to Venus. So we're going to look, well, not quite. It will be high in the southern sky, right now for in the evening. It's going to start nearly due south as the sun goes down right now, and as the month of December moves forward, that is obviously going to change. Whoops, there we go. As we can see, as the month progresses, Jupiter is going to be moving further and further over to the west because it's just transitioning through there. So let's see if we have any interesting positionings with the moon along the ecliptic. You're gonna, well, not, nope, no. Well, there's gonna be a cool one. What is this? This is December 6th. So 4th, 5th, Monday. Monday, we're going to have a cool conjunction with Venus and a very thin crescent moon. So if you're looking for a really cool picture out there, Venus and the crescent moon are going to be visible. Of course, the time that I have right here is for, the western portion of the United States. So check accordingly on your planetarium apps to see what the positioning is going to be for you. But there should be a cool Venus crescent moon conjunction right there for you to take a look at. So definitely worth going out and take a look at that. So like I said earlier, you've got Jupiter. Jupiter is nice and high in the evening sky. Let me get back to this evening. Boop, boop, boop. Today's the 3rd. Jupiter's nice and high in the southern part of the sky, and it'll be visible for most of the evening as it progresses. It's a fun one to go out and observe. Of course, after Jupiter, we have Saturn. Saturn is also naked eye visible from most backyards. It's got a real nice set of rings, obviously, that you can see. It is going to be on the southwestern side of the sky. It'll be fainter than Venus and Jupiter. It'll be kind of right in the middle. Nice line of 3 planets in a row, but something pretty cool to see. That will be easily visible in the south once you've got dark enough skies to check that out. So definitely go out, take a look at those. Those are your 3 major naked eye planets right now. And then after that, we're going to start getting into the fainter stuff. Uranus is up in the sky right now. Also, that one's going to take a telescope to see. That's kind of a fun one to show people, but it's going to be way over in the eastern part of the sky in the early evening. So you're probably going to have to wait till, at least 6 o'clock or so when it's high enough to actually go out and observe. So go ahead and check that one out. That's the planet Uranus. Let's see if it gives me the information that I want, because I'm still, let's see, that's not that. Oh, there it is. Sorry about that. That's not anything I want to know. Position in sky. Okay, it's in the constellation of Aries right now. So still learning the software. But yeah, constellation of Aries, not far ahead of the Pleiades too much. But that's going to be one that's going to take a telescope for you to go out and actually observe. Be a little blue ball there. It's kind of a neat one to try out. And then lastly, of course, we have Neptune. Neptune's hanging out up there as well. That takes a little bit. That's a much more challenging planet to go out and observe. Probably going to be a 4-inch or bigger telescope to take a look at that. But that's something that you can go out and find up in the nighttime sky as well. But it's going to be situated real high in the sky right after it gets dark in the south. It's up in Aquarius right now. Jupiter, Saturn, Venus will be naked eye visible. And then after Jupiter, you have Neptune hanging out up there in the constellation of Aquarius. It's a good challenge to try and hunt that one down. Or just use your go-to telescope if you want to go out and check that out. So those are the big planets that are up right now. Hopefully you go get something to check out. But yeah, that's what we've got going on there right now. Now the sun. The sun also is a real cool object to go check out. Activity is increasing right now. There's some prominences up on the sun right now as well, but it's worth keeping an eye on. It's also a fun object to sketch if you ever have a chance to do that. But it's also a fun object to photograph. The website that I like to go to, in case anybody wants to know, is Gong. Here it is up here. I just type in H alpha solar, GONG solar H alpha in Google, and it comes up. This gives you a collection of different observatories to pick from in hydrogen alpha to see what's going up on the sun. and it's updated frequently. So here's a cool full disk image right now. This is from Cerro Tolo down in Chile. So go check that out. And we were going to try, let me see if this works. There we go. It might have drifted off by this point. Yep, it drifted off. I had set up one of my solar telescopes to share with you guys. And it's the Esprit 150. I've got my Daystar Quantum Hydrogen Alpha filter out there right now. But there was a prominence on there. But it's not really playing nice with me like right now. So I was going to try to do a live feed for you guys of the sun. And it seems to have drifted off. So we won't worry too much about that right now. So, but if you're looking for something live to go check out, I'm sorry, my screens are doing whatever they want. Go ahead and check out the Gong Solar Observatory. All kinds of cool stuff there. So definitely go ahead and check that out. Definitely worth taking a view of that. Now, meteor showers. We actually have 2 meteor showers this month, so it's kind of going to be a good one. It will depend greatly on the moon, however. So let's jump into that. The first one is the Geminid meteor shower, which actually peaks the 13th and 14th of this month. These are fairly colorful, I guess because the velocities of these are a bit slower in comparison to other meteor showers. That's what I read. But you're looking at about 150 per hour, so it's big. But we have a 78% illuminated moon, so it's going to be best after midnight to check that out. And if you're not sure where to take a look at that, let me turn off all the planets here because we don't need them anymore. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. If you're not sure where to look for this, let's actually speed this up. After midnight, because it is the Geminids. It's going to be coming out of Gemini. Let's see. There we go. It's going to be coming out of the main portion of this is going to be centered out of the main constellation of Gemini. Not far from the bright star Castor is where the center position of that is. So if you're going to be aiming a camera there to kind of catch all these like incoming meteors, you want to aim right about where Castor is in the nighttime sky. And that is where the Geminids are going to originate from. So go ahead and check that out. Again, that's on December 13th and 14th is the peak. And we will have a fairly bright moon, if I can find where that's hanging out at. I'm not sure where the moon is up here. It should be visible somewhere. We won't worry too much about it right now because it doesn't matter. So go ahead and check that out. Geminids on the 13th and 14th of this month should be a cool one. Next one, we have the Ursids meteor showers. That's December 21st and 22nd of this month. That's 5 to 10 per hour. But you have a nearly full moon that's going to be coming out of the Ursa Major region over there. And we can pop back over into Starry Night once again. And that's going to be coming out right over here. Let me just go 21. I'll have to find it. Let's see. Anyway, there's all kinds of stuff you can do in this software. But yeah, go ahead and check it out and see where that's going to be for you. But yeah, those are the 2 major meteor showers this time of year. So go ahead, check it out. Have fun with that. And should be a good one to go out. The Ursids are going to be a little difficult because obviously you're going to have a very, very bright moon to contend with. But the Geminids should be a good one. So get out there, check that one out, especially later in the evening or the pre-dawn skies would be the best time to go out and check those out. So that is the the Geminid meteor shower. And that's coming up in the next week or so. So good luck with that. All right. Comets. We've got a couple things to talk about this month for comets, as I'm sure you've probably seen a lot of things popping up right now. So If you're into observing comets, the website that I like to use is cometchasing.skyhound.com. It lists all the major comets that are visible right now, and there's some really good ones out there. Probably the biggest one that you're seeing this evening, wherever you are, is going to be C2 or 2021 A1 Leonard that just passed the cluster M3 this morning. And then another one is 67P, which is another good. So that is something that we can definitely go out and check out and observe. Those are two bright enough comets. 67P is shining at 8.8 magnitude, which means we're actually able to use a telescope on that. It's not naked eye visible. It's too dim. Generally, naked eye magnitude minimum is 7th magnitude. So we're going to go ahead and going to need a telescope for that one. Probably some slightly darker skies if you can. However, C 2021A1 is brightening up. That is 6.8 magnitude, so it is looking like it's just inside that naked eye visibility, but you're probably going to need some dark skies. And checking out the finder charts for that, it's actually moving pretty quick. Right now it's in Coma Berenices, but it is diving down. It's going to be moving further down into the sun, or near the sun, so if you're trying to get out there and observe it, now's probably a good time to do it, but it's going to be an early morning object. Here is 67P, taken from our telescope the other day. I don't remember when we shot this, but this is something that you can go out, check out. It's a cool one to take a look at. It does have an anti-tail that's nearly opposite its main tail, so try to pull that out. It's faint. Hard to see, but try to get that if you're doing astrophotography. Kind of a cool thing to go ahead. And then C 2021 A1 Leonard is, we had a really nice conjunction with that this morning. This is a shot that I shot this morning from our remote observatory telescopes. This is Leonard passing the bright globular cluster M3 in Coma Berenices this morning. So that'll be a good one to see. I'm sorry, I said 67P was in the constellation Coma Berenices. That is incorrect. Comet Leonard is in Coma Berenices currently. So go and check that out, or check your apps or whatever you use for observing to confirm the location of those. But that is what is up and visible right now for comets. There's probably a handful of other ones up there, but those are the two big ones that everyone's talking about, particularly Comet Leonard, because it passed M3 this morning. But that one's a good one to go out and try to catch, because it is just within naked eye visibility, but you probably need the conditions to support it. So good luck with that. It's a very nice comet to shoot. Obviously, it came out pretty well. This is only 40 minutes of exposure. We used two telescopes, one shooting luminance, one shooting one-shot color, and compiled the two. So this is 40 minutes of exposure from this morning, early this morning. I was up shooting it, so I did not have all the robotic and junk stuff working on it. So, but yeah, go out, try it. It's an awesome comet. Go ahead and try to observe that one. Now, let's talk about all the fun stuff. Deep sky targets. There's a lot of really interesting stuff that's up this time of year too. We could do a whole hour on this particular topic because of how many cool things that are up there. So I will just kind of try to go through some of the nice ones, sprinkle a mix of, difficult ones and fun ones in there. First one, of course, is NGC 869 and 884, the double cluster. It's the constellation of Perseus, about 7,500 light years away from the Earth. But this is a great object to go out and observe right now. It's easy in almost any optic, even in a kind of a crappy backyard setting. You can see the two clusters. It's a fun one if you're just getting started with deep sky observing. Maybe you got the telescope that you wanted for the holidays a little early or whatever. But this is a good one. Or if you are getting something for the holidays and you lucked out that you're going to get it on time, the double cluster is a fantastic object to go out and observe. It gets your feet wet with deep sky observing. and it's an easy one to observe in town, but it's outstanding in a dark sky sight because of so many stars that pan in between there. Imaging wise, it's a very easy object to do for photography because it's an open star cluster. It's good for one-shot color. You can use RGB imaging, but it's nothing fancy. So it's something you can easily do from the backyard, and it's also something you can do from dark skies if you want to, but it's a fun target to go out and check out, and it just looks great overall. Next one, M33, the Triangulum Galaxy. This is in a good spot right now if you're trying to get out and observe. I'm going to pop this up real quick and get back to our current date because we're on the 3rd. It's not the end of the month anymore. Let me get this in here. M33. So M33 right now, we're actually kind of getting towards the end of the season, but let's just get back to about 7 or 8 o'clock. So right now, depending on where you're at, astronomical twilight, which means if you're not aware of what astronomical twilight is, that is when the sky is actually dark for astronomy purposes. M33 right now is nearly overhead for the U.S., northern hemisphere regions. Nearly straight overhead, not quite, but it is over a little bit. That is a great object to shoot. You can get a couple hours of observing time on it. If you're from a dark sky site, if you're going out to a dark sky site this week or this weekend, it would be a great object to start the evening off with. Usually about 6 or 7 o'clock at night, it's in a good position. If you're in a dark sky site, something as small as like a 80 millimeter can grab it. But it's in a very good position right now to where if you want to go out and you want to take some pictures of it, you still have enough time to get some data on that before it gets too low. And it looks great in a lot of different ways. You can do one-shot color. You can do RGB. If you are going to do it, it does have a lot of H2 regions in it. Like this guy, here's an image in hydrogen alpha. But add a little hydrogen alpha data in there too if you can. It'll pop those star forming regions out there if you can. So kind of a cool object to take a look at. But M33 is a great object to go out and observe. It is a bit diffuse, so if you are trying to observe it with a smaller aperture telescope, maybe under 8-inch, it looks like a bit of a fuzz. But as you get larger and larger aperture, you get a lot more structure in there with the dust lanes and stuff like that. If you got a friend who's got a big Dob, have them throw that over and take a look at it. So, yep. But yeah, there you go. M33. This is a staple right now. M45, the Pleiades. If you're new to astronomy and you're watching this, and it's the this time of year, end of the year, this is an easy object to go. You can see it naked eye from your front yard in pretty much most urban areas. Even with the light pollution, it's a very nice cluster. It looks great in binoculars. Low power eyepieces, probably with telescopes under 1,000 millimeter focal length, with a lower power eyepiece, should get a nice view of the whole cluster there. So it looks great. But if you're looking for the nebulosity, that's going to be a bit of a challenge, and you really need dark, transparent skies to see the Merope Nebula, which is what all this is called. You'll need darker skies to see that. But for photography purposes, it generally shows up in very short exposures. This is a reflection nebula, so we need to understand that there is no light pollution filter or anything that's really going to help you here. Narrow band filters will not do anything on this nebula. So that's something that we need to take a look at and consider when we're doing this. Someone did mention, while we were talking about the sun earlier, that I would like to repeat this because I don't think I mentioned it before. Do not ever look at the sun without the correct solar filters on your telescope. Just throwing that out there, and just don't do it. Got to throw that out there. Anyway, moving on. So the cool thing about the Pleiades cluster is it works in a lot of different focal lengths. And let me actually go through here. So here is the Pleiades at 550 millimeters. So if you're looking to get out and do some imaging with this, 550 millimeter, this is a full frame sensor. Plenty of room to frame that up really nicely. And if you have a full frame and you're up to about 1,000 millimeter, it still frames up the cluster nicely. So it's a very flexible object to shoot, and just go out and give it a shot with whatever you're trying to do. It'll look great in the backyard. It'll look awesome from a dark sky site. I would pick a time where there's no moon up in the sky, obviously, but as long as there's no moon, like this weekend, if you're looking for something fun to shoot or observe, the Pleiades is a very good position right now to get a lot of time on it, because right about 8 o'clock, it's still in the east rising right now, right over here in the constellation of Taurus. So you could actually go almost all night on the Pleiades right now as it transcends the sky, going near zenith straight overhead right now to take a look at that. So if you're looking for something to image, that maybe something that's not super challenging, the Pleiades is always a fan favorite, especially when you get these really nice details inside of it. So give it a go. Try it out. Another one that's up right now, it's in the constellation of Perseus. It's really not far from the Pleiades, actually, is the California Nebula. This is a cool one because you can actually, it's very strong in narrowband. It is a H2 star forming region, so there's it's very abundant in hydrogen. So if you're looking to do astrophotography, even in town, you can put a hydrogen alpha filter. That's how I shot this right here. Just a 200 millimeter Canon lens and a monochrome camera and an H alpha filter, and go to town. You get some nice detail. This was shot in my backyard. Nothing fancy. About 1,000 light years away. It does look good in visible light as well, if you want to approach it differently. As far as visual, it is a challenge, however. It does require dark skies. You're probably going to want a wider field optic, something in that 500 millimeter to 800 millimeter focal length with low power eyepieces. And because it is so abundant in hydrogen, you're probably going to want something that allows that to pop out. So like a UHC filter or an H-beta filter are great filters for this to help pop that out. And from dark locations, it looks excellent. So highly recommend the California Nebula. It's kind of one that gets overlooked because you have so many other major nebulas that are up this time of year. But it's hanging out right over there by the Pleiades. Here's the Pleiades right there. Here's the California Nebula over here in Perseus. You can see they're really not that far away from one another. And if you have a wide enough optic, they have all kinds of detail and dust between these two regions. So there's all kinds of cool stuff in there. So definitely go out, take a look at the Pleiades. But don't forget the California Nebula is hanging out not too far away from it as well. So there's a lot of good objects up there this time of year to check out. So the California Nebula is a very, very nice nebula to observe. And it's something that you can do from home with some narrowband equipment, even with the moon up. Don't worry about it. Just go after it. But give it a shot. All right. We're to that spot now. We have to talk about it. The elephant in the room, M42. Obviously, we all know where this is positioned in the sky. It's like the most famous nebula in the northern hemisphere, 1,600 light years away from the Earth. This is probably the best nebula that you can see in the nighttime sky in the northern hemisphere. It's bright enough that really binoculars, small telescopes, even the crappy ones that you can get from stores can see it. It doesn't take any amount of effort to really get out and observe this nebula. So go out, check it out. If you're new to the hobby, this should be one of the first objects that you go out and try to stretch your legs into deep sky observing with, because it's just excellent. You can get structure, look for the trapezium in the core, but yeah, it's an awesome object to go take a look at. As far as imaging goes, everything's on the table. Looks great from the backyard, even in light polluted locations. Looks great in narrowband. I don't have a true narrowband Hubble palette of this nebula yet. Hopefully soon. And from dark sky sites, it's unbelievable visually and imaging wise. Just want to throw some things out there just that I've been messing with. So this is a one-shot color image with a luminance channel applied on top of it to help bring out the dust. One thing, this got brought up a while with a little group of friends of mine, that a lot of people will go to this region and they'll focus solely on M42 only. And there's so much in this region that you overlook, especially if you're a big fan of clipping the blacks on your astrophotography images. By the way, most of space actually is not black. There's lots of dust, lots of molecular clouds. There's a lot of brown up in there. So you want to make sure that you're not clipping that data, because you're going to lose all this little faint nebulosity that's floating out around there. And then, of course, right next to M42 is the Running Man. So that's a great one to see as well. That's a little harder visually, but you can get that from darker skies. You can start to see the structure in there. Now, let's talk about all the nebulosity around this region. Between M42, the Running Man, and the Horsehead, you have a massive nebula complex floating throughout the entire constellation of Orion. And that's something that a lot of people will miss, because again, you are focusing solely on the main nebula. This is only a portion of this large nebula complex. So what I would recommend, if you're messing around with whatever, you've got old data, try shooting some hydrogen alpha on this as well. So I want to show you what I did to pop out the nebulosity here. So this is my color shot of Orion. Very happy with it. Looks great. I don't remember the exposure times on this. It wasn't a ton of time. But then I'm starting to work on this Hubble palette, narrowband palette of the same region. So I had 6 hours of hydrogen data thrown in there, and that gets blended in. That, and here's the AB real quick. This adds a lot different structural look to this whole region, and you can really see how much detail is actually floating back in there. So let me go back and forth here. So here's just a standard one-shot color with a lot of luminance applied to it. And then here's what that enhanced hydrogen channel applied to that. So don't be afraid to mess around and experiment with filters and really try to see what you can pull out, because even from your backyard, going with a deep hydrogen shot, and even you one-shot color guys out there, you can do this because now that we have these multi-band, narrowband filters, you can start toying around with really deep, detailed images even from your backyard. So don't be afraid to throw in some narrowband data. It kind of gets interesting when you're trying to process that, but you can weave the color and the narrowband channels together carefully, but you can get some really cool detail out of that. All right. Now let's talk about my favorite nebula and everyone else's favorite nebula for the most part, the Horsehead and the Flame. Now, very easy object to image, very difficult object to observe. So again, it's in the constellation of Orion. It's right off of the bright star Alnitak. That's what this bright star is right here. This is in the Belt region. So the 3-star, as my good friends call it, 3 in a row. So we all know that it's one of the most, so many people who don't know anything about astronomy know the constellation of Orion. So we're looking at the Belt stars. We have Mintaka, Alnilam, and Alnitak. And Alnitak is the bright star in the middle that basically lights up the Horsehead. So that is something that you want to check out. So it's easy to find. It's very easy to shoot, but it's very, very difficult to observe. So for visual work, I would probably, it needs to be dark skies. There's no question about that when you're trying to observe this visually. I'd probably say somewhere between 10 and 12, if not bigger, telescopes. H beta filter is almost necessary unless you have a buddy who's got a real big scope and good conditions, or a UHC filter. H betas are kind of specialized. I do recommend having those filters in your case at some point, especially if you're really into deep sky observing. But if you don't worry about it. The same wavelengths are passed in a UHC filter. They're just not as isolated, so you don't have as much structural detail coming through as the H beta would. But yeah, it's a very complex target to look for. You're basically looking for a black thumbprint on black paper. Very, very faint. What I find is you want to be very, very careful when observing this object. Take your time. I usually use Dobsonians when I'm doing visual work. Whatever telescope you're using, use the hand controller or grab the front of the scope and slowly move it side to side while observing. And of course, you'll watch Owl the Tack kind of come in and out, and it'll move around. But you want to just look very slowly to see what moves while you move the telescope. And that's what I find is a really easy way to start and find where the horsehead is. I'm going to break down what we're actually looking here in a minute too. Imaging wise, it's a freaking piece of cake. You can do it from a backyard with all the modern day technology. Cameras are very sensitive to all this, but it's easy to catch this one. So we're talking, you can do it visual light, narrowband, and hydrogen alpha is easy. But imaging the Horsehead Nebula, there's no problem. You could do it with a star tracker, a 200 millimeter lens, and an unmodified SLR or mirrorless camera. No problem. Easy. Don't even worry about it. So real quick, here's a one-shot color image of the Horsehead. And then you can also blend hydrogen into it. Here's a hydrogen blend. It kind of warps the colors a little bit. But yeah, that's one what we can talk. That's something you can mess with as well. Don't be afraid to experiment with filters and try them out. But here's the thing. This region is very complex. There's a lot going on with it. So this portion of the nebula, this is actually what you want to look for when you're observing the Horsehead. This is IC, or Index Catalog 434. This is the hydrogen portion of the nebula. This is what you want to look for when you're looking at the Horsehead. If you can see this glow, which is rather faint, but this is what the H beta filter is going to come out, bring out, is this glowing nebula portion. When you're observing this, if you can see that, you want to go towards the middle of it, and then you want to see if you can see the absent of light there. That's where the Horsehead is. And if you're careful, you can see it. That's B33, the Horsehead Nebula in the center. Then below you have NGC 2023. And then, of course, the Flame Nebula, NGC 2024, which is just below Owl the Tack. That's easy. That one you can see, no problem. It really doesn't take much effort. But if you can see the Flame Nebula, then you know you're in the right spot. It's just how good are the conditions, or what kind of equipment are you using to catch the rest of the region there. So that's how I would approach that. But yeah, so we'll go with that. All right. The Witch Head. Witch Head is a challenge on almost every level. This is a reflection nebula right off the bright star Rigel, the opposite side of Orion near Betelgeuse, right up here. So here's Orion Nebula, here's the Horsehead, here's Rigel, and then right up here is IC 2118, the Witch Head Nebula. Very big nebula. You need a wide field, very dark skies. It's a reflection nebula, so no filters are going to help you. Observing wise, you probably need something that's around 12-inch or bigger dark skies to really bring it out. And you just, like the Horsehead, grab the scope, move it side to side, and try to find it. It's probably not as hard as you think it is. It just requires the right conditions and the right equipment to do it. The Witch Head, honestly, is probably easier to see. The brighter portions here are probably easier to catch in a dark sky sight than the Horsehead is, personally. It's not too far, 750 light years away. Imaging wise, again, dark skies, it's a reflection nebula. Narrow band will do you no good here. Hydrogen, you could probably get some form of the structure of the nebula in there if you need to, but it's very, very difficult to catch. Now, the Witch Head is also very large, so you're going to need very wide field object or wide field optic to do it. Big sensor. This is a mosaic I'm actually working on currently. This is all with the Esprit 150. This is 5 panels all stitched together. This opened up in Photoshop is huge. Very high resolution shots as we mosaic that together. But that's the Witch Head. There's all kinds of extensions. There's a lot of really intricate galaxies on the lower portion of this as well. So if you've got a big daub, go out and check out. Go ahead and check that out. There's a lot of little details in there, so don't be afraid to really dig into that region too. So that's the Witch Head Nebula. Very, very challenging object. Go wide, you know, bring out your telephoto lenses, but really, if you've got a star tracker and you want to go after something deep, the Witch Head's a great one to go after. Just make sure you know what you're doing on that. I do see there's some requests here about Barnard's Loop. I don't have a slide on that, but while I'm talking about everything else, I'm going to bring up Barnard's Loop. I've got something somewhere floating around that, so just hold on there, and I will try to bring that up for you, and we'll discuss Barnard's Loop if I can find it. Anyway, I don't want to sit here forever looking for the files in there. But anyway, I'll see what I can do if I can figure out where I've got that hiding. Because I did do a big... Oh, here it is. Bear with me just a second. Okay. So a couple years ago, from my backyard, using... This was a Starlight. It's actually right here. Hold on, sorry, we're going off record right now. I should have propped this in there, but this is the entire constellation of Orion in hydrogen alpha. The entire thing is basically a nebula. Barnard's Loop basically encompasses all the way from the top of the nebula, all the way from the top of the constellation down toward Regulus or Rigel. So Rigel is up here, and Betelgeuse is down here. There's the Horsehead. There's Orion. Let me see if I can zoom in on this a little bit. This particular image was taken with a Canon 200mm f2.8 lens. There we go. There's the whole thing from my backyard in Phoenix. You really don't need anything exotic because you can basically shoot this whole thing in narrowband. This was done with a Starlight Express 16200 camera, monochrome sensor, and just night after night after night pounding different regions of the constellation there and stitching it into this big old thing. So observing the Barnard Loop is huge. You really need to take it in pieces because there's no optic that's really going to be big enough to encompass it because it's the entire constellation practically. If you're shooting it, you can basically go in and use a wide lens. You can mosaic it like I did here. It just takes forever. But with today's modern cameras, you can get away with a lot of stuff there. So, yeah, there you go. So that's the Barnard's Loop. An H-beta filter or UHC filter, very low power, and just basically scan the region. That's all you can do. It's so big that you just have to take it in pieces. Just follow it around. unless you've got one of those night vision binoculars binoculars, you can put an H beta or an H alpha filter in front of those, and then you can point that up and actually look. That's awesome to do that. Those are expensive, and very few of us have access to the night vision capabilities. For the astronomer who has it all, night vision is the way to go. But observing the Barnard Loop, dark skies, H beta, wide field, that's pretty much the way to do it. If you're doing imaging, big field of view, probably a camera lens, real sensitive sensor and narrow band filters. That's really the way to, and just time. Be patient for it. But yeah, this is the my mosaic of Orion. And there's also a bunch of other stuff up there. I forgot this region up at the head of Orion. We could be here forever, but there you go. Kind of off the beaten path on there. Okay. Let's see. Here's a weird one for you. Abell 6, and I'm going to butcher this. Hecathorn Pheasant Gull 1, or HFG 1. This is in Cassiopeia. I don't know the distances. It's far, like everything else in space. Abell 6 is this little bubble guy down here, and HFG 1 is up here. I've never observed HFG 1 before. I'm sure it's doable in a really big telescope. These are planetary nebulas. Planetary nebulas emit very heavily in oxygen 3 wavelengths. So if you want to hunt these down, an O3 filter would be my recommendation. Abell 6 is probably a lot easier. There's a lot more to it. It's off these bright stars. I don't know, but you could find a map to find it, or use a go-to system. You could probably do Abell 6 in like a 10-inch telescope. They're small. Use an O3 filter. Obviously, the bigger the telescope, the more light, better, great, all that fun stuff. HFG 1, I've never tried before. I'm assuming you're probably going to be in that 20-inch plus class of telescope. Big daub, O3 filter, very dark skies, all that fun. Imaging wise, this has been also a challenge. So this is a bicolor image. Here's the H alpha shot. This is 18 hours of exposure time in hydrogen. You can see nice detail. It comes out in Abell 6, but HFG 1, there's not a lot in there. And then when you flip over to oxygen 3, this isn't a great example because we had some high haze up there, so it kind of diminished it. But you can see how much more active these nebulas are in O3. So that's kind of what I would say is the challenge target for this month. If you're looking for something just weird to go after, is Abell 6 and HFG 1. So yeah, go ahead, hit that up there in Cassiopeia, give it a go. Narrow band. Yeah, but there's a ton of hydrogen in this region. That's what all this background stuff, it's hydrogen. Will be very apparent in your narrowband shots, but then the nebulas themselves are mainly composed of oxygen 3 because they are planetary nebulas, and that's very common with planetaries. I know there's a bunch of other objects we didn't talk about. Don't worry, the winter is just about to start, so all of you are asking about, what about the Rosette and Hubble's Variable Nebula and the Cone Nebula and all these other things? We've got a lot of time for that. So now we'll get to questions. If you like what you see here, please go ahead and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Transition here before we get to questions. Please go ahead and subscribe if you like what you see here. It helps us out, lets us know we're doing a good job. Next week, because you can't get telescopes right now, we're going to talk about cool accessories and stuff that you could actually get or maybe find for the holidays. Good stocking stuffers for the astronomer in your life. We'll kind of come up with some neat ideas that maybe you can throw in there while you're waiting on your telescope, and we'll go from there. But that is pretty much it for this week. So let me get into questions because there's a bunch of them in here. And we will go to there. So, okay. Let me go through here real quick. Someone mentioned we didn't cover the solar viewing warning. Yes. We were trying to do some solar viewing earlier. I've got my Esprit 150 outside with my Daystar H alpha filter on it. Never, ever, ever, ever observe the sun without the proper equipment and know-how, we have a couple videos here on our webcast that we did last year about how to observe the sun safely and the different types of filters. Please look at that if you are interested in getting started in solar observing, because it is the most dangerous type of astronomy. You can go blind if you do not handle that correctly. So if you don't know anything about that, go over to those episodes, learn about the sun before even considering a solar filter of any kind for that. So thanks for bringing that up. Next question. Have you thought about talking about imaging Barnard's Loop around Orion? Obviously, we covered Barnard's Loop. I'll probably throw that into January's What's Up episode, because it's going to be a little bit better positioned for that. But I will try to throw that into next month's What's Up webcast episode. Thanks for bringing that up. That's old data I've had for years, and it is a good one to talk about. Let's see. What was my imaging setup for Comet Leonard? So this was a fun one to try. So I use telescopes out. We have some telescopes out at Skies Away Remote Observatory. If you want to know more about them, Google Skies Away. If you want to host your equipment here, I'll bring up the shot here. And so you guys can see, this is the shot they were referring to. This is from this morning. Comets are very tricky when you're trying to image them. They are moving against the star field, and they're moving quickly, so they will blur. So generally when you're shooting comets, you want to have quick exposures, and generally a one-shot color works really well. The problem with that is you can't really get the detail that you'd like out of that unless you go wider. So I actually, because we have, let me see if I can even bring this up real quick while we're all talking here. So in the observatory that we work with, we have our telescope, and then we have a friend's telescope that we have the luxury of using every now and again. And they are currently parked. Here's what we used. This is Falling Eagle Observatory, which you can actually find on Facebook if you want to, and Instagram. What I shot that with is two Esprit 150 6-inch triplets. The North Pier that you see back here, that is a ZWO 6200 monochrome. So I did luminance on one, and then the South Pier has a one-shot color version, exactly the same. So I had both telescopes shoot that object at exactly the same time. One doing luminance, one doing one-shot color. That's how I do a lot of my images. It allows me to get more done in half the time. It's a process, but it allows me to do color and luminance, so I can get that deep section that I'm looking for without the streaking too much. So it's a lot like Contact. Why have two? Why have one when you can have two at twice the price? But yeah, I understand there's a lot of people who don't have that ability, but that's what shot this. I had one telescope do luminance, one do color. It's 10 2-minute exposures each, so both of them shooting at the same time, 10 2 minutes. But you can get great stuff with just a monochrome camera. But yeah, usually try about, I find Leonard works really good at 2 minutes, bin 2x2, try to get as much data as possible and just process it there. So hopefully that answered the questions there on the Comet. Is the ASI Air 2600 a good match for the Esprit 100? Yes, it actually is a very good match for the lots of questions today. We'll go over imaging mode. This is astronomy.tools. If you ever want to mess with anything, it's a great calculator to use. We're just going to put an object in there. It doesn't really matter what it is. We'll just go with M31. The Esprit 100 is a 550 millimeter focal length, and we're using a ZWO 2600 is what we're asking about. Add to the field of view. Here's a 2600. Generally, when you're observing in your backyard, resolutions for telescopes from the average backyard are usually somewhere between like 1 and 2 arc seconds per pixel. So it's, that's kind of what I would probably say closer to 1.5 to 2 arc seconds per pixel is the average seeing conditions from the average backyard. The Esprit 100 with a 2600 ZWO is native at 1 point. I don't have this fully. There we go. Now that's accurate. That is going to give you a 1.4 arc second per pixel resolution at 1x1 bin. And it's going to give you about 2.5 by 1.6 degree field of view. That's a very, very nice pairing. So yes, the 2600 is phenomenal on the Esprit 100. It's basically perfect. So hopefully that answers your question on that. What is the best technique for eliminating noise when imaging the horse head? Lots of darks, bias, depends on the camera. Dithering does help. It really, there's a lot of variables in that question depending on what camera you're using, how long you're shooting, sky conditions, is your camera cooled, is it not cooled, and just more exposures, honestly. So yeah, long exposures and good calibration frames like your darks and your flats and bias if you need bias. Most of the modern CMOS cameras don't need bias frames, I find. But if you're using like a mirrorless or a DSLR, bias would probably be very helpful. But it also depends on the sky conditions. And are you using filters? And how fast is your optic? So more exposure never hurts. So if you can go longer, shoot multiple nights, more exposure will always help smooth out any noise issues. Let's see. Cap or remove the finder when solar viewing. I never use a finder on my telescopes when I have any extra optical whatever. I'm used to working with outreach, programs, so going to like schools and stuff. I would recommend eliminating anything that might be potentially hazardous when doing solar observing. If you have caps on there, that's great. But I would take that off and get rid of anything else that might be questionable. Unless you're in an observatory or you know really what you're doing and it's a permanent setup or whatever it is, I would take anything that's optical, that's pointed at the sun, that's not in use. If you can, take it off and don't use it. Just use the main telescope for safety, and go with that. So, but yeah, be very, very, very careful when observing the sun. Make sure you really have done your research. Maybe consult a group online or a club. Make sure you consult someone who really knows what they're talking about when observing the sun. If you're looking, like if you've got a telescope, maybe you've got a telescope this year, maybe you got a telescope last holiday season, or you're going to get one. A very common question is, how do I observe the sun? We do have some eclipses coming up in 2023 and 2024. So solar filters are going to be something that's going to come up. We'll probably do an episode about the eclipses coming up probably about a year from now. But if you have any inkling of wanting to do solar observing, please make sure you have a firm understanding of that before you spend your money on anything. And make sure you're getting quality equipment and you have the know-how of how that equipment works, just so you don't hurt yourself. It's an awesome part of the hobby. The sun is amazing, but don't mess with it. And if you want to know more, we have 2 webcasts that cover that in detail. And if you need to know more than that, consult your telescope shop or call the manufacturer of the solar filters. They're generally very helpful. Like the teams at Lunt, the teams at Daystar, they're very helpful crew of people that will help you navigate, and all the other ones out there. If I missed, I'm sure I missed somebody, but consult someone who really knows what they're doing on that, just so you're safe. So, but it's definitely a cool part of the hobby. Just make sure you do your research and understand it before throwing money at it. Anyway, that's it for today. We went over a little bit. We'll probably cover a bunch of other stuff next time. So thanks for hanging out with us. Have a great weekend. Be safe. And good luck on your dark sky observing. I think there's one more question coming through. What is better, 100 1-minute exposures or 10? Oh. So I'm going to talk about this real quick. Question is, what's better, 100 1-minute exposures or 10 10-minute exposures? What's better quality? So when you're talking about astrophotography, you have your camera. Your camera, whatever that one is, whether it's a Canon, Nikon, Sony, CMOS, whatever, your camera is actively running. It has electronics in it. It's making noise in the image, like static in your image. Those sensors, they are getting better. So that static or noise isn't as big of a deal, but it's still there. When you take an image and the shutter is opened, you basically have to get the pixels to fill up enough to get over the ambient noise of the sensor that exists at all times. That's your shot noise. That's something that just inherently exists in every camera, and that level is different. So a 1-minute image, you're probably just getting above that shot noise. And yeah, you could take a bunch of images, but the problem is, you know, let's say like we use a ZWO 26 or 6200. It's a 60 megapixel sensor. The files on it are freaking huge. So with something like that, yes, we could take 100 1-minute exposures. But the thing about it is those file sizes are the same whether it's 1 minute or 10 minutes. So you could take all that data and shove it through your computer, and you're just making your computer work harder. I find it's better quality to go longer. Less is more. So I find, and this is very variable. It's dependent on the setup, and there's a lot of things that go with it. I find it's better to do less exposures but longer exposures because you're going to get way above that shot or read noise of the sensor. You want to get as far away from the read noise as possible. So the more exposure you can get, the higher you get above that and the more detail you get. But again, that may be different for everybody, but I find longer exposures are always better than shorter exposures, and as far as time goes. Generally, a lot of my images are composed of 5-minute exposures, sometimes 10. It depends on what we're shooting. But anyway, hopefully that answers your question. I know we went over a little bit. We'll have to do a whole episode about that because that's a big topic. So maybe next year we'll throw that in, understanding like cameras and noise and all that junk. So we'll do an episode on that. Thanks for bringing that up. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great new moon weekend, and we will see you guys next week where we're talking holiday accessories. So thanks very much. Have a great weekend, and I hope to see you guys next Friday. Take care, everyone. See ya.